Hello, I'm miltonchang of Bonsai Heirloom. A sunny day, a little bit too sunny for video, but here I am. This tree we did recently, it's a Nishiki pine. You can see in close-up that beautiful corking, really precious. And here this piece fell off and I glue it back and held it with a wire because it's so valuable to have the cork. And today I would like to experiment air layering a Nishiki pine. I read about that in Japanese bonsai books, but I've never done it, and nobody has ever done a Nishiki pine before. This tree was bought about 4 or 5 months ago, less than 6 months ago, and we repotted it, and you can see it's growing vigorously. This is actually a graft. You can see this is the original black pine, and that's where it's grafted. You can buy cuttings, which is also very difficult to do. The yield is maybe less than the 10%, but you can buy cuttings grown Nishiki pine from Japan, not too expensively because a lot of people are doing that, but you can't bring them back. I read about air layering Nishiki pine. I'd never done it before. So I thought I always wanted to do it, so I thought do it with you so we both can learn and do it someday together again to see if it works. What you do is that the trick is to put a cloth over the area you want to get rid of. So in this case, I want the tree to be like this, okay? And you can see this branch is a little taller. So if I tilt this tree and make this the top, the apex, this will be a side branch, and that will be a side branch. It'll be okay, although I would say this is probably a better apex because it's coming up like this, and this way comes down this way. But if I tilt it this way, this is a little higher, but doesn't matter, it will be lower on that side. But nonetheless, we can decide later. In the meantime, what I would do is to air layer this part to become a separate nice tree that without the graft mark. So let's go for it. And what I want to add the following. This is a remover of crab meat you can buy from Amazon. And it's a great tool for removing little weeds. And if you do it consistently over time, there'll be no weeds. But these Irish moss is really a pain. They come up, you can never get rid of them. But if you do it enough times, a number of years, every time you see one, you pull it out with the roots, and without letting it go to seeds, eventually it will have no more. So you have to pull out the roots with it. When you manage a project, you have to be thorough, or else it will never get done right. You can see the little moss. You don't have to stress out if you didn't remove it all. It will come back again, but you will have a chance to remove it again. And that's the philosophy about doing things over time, thoroughly, with the end in mind, and be patient, and with a long-term view, so you have the patience to do it. So I remove a layer of bark as most air layering does. I think I wanted to root out here, but you can see the trunk is actually very thin. The thick part is actually mostly the corking. So that's the unusual piece about characteristic of the Nishiki pine. You can see this is just all bark, nothing there. So you want to get rid of all of that to get to the cambium layer to make a root. You're beginning to see the cambium layer underneath the bark. And you have to do that very thoroughly, cleanly, so that you can put the rootone, the rooting hormone back there. You can see the trunk is very thin. The rest of it's really the bark that's overgrown bark, overdeveloped bark. So what I'll do is I actually remove all the bark. This is actually part of a bonsai cutter that's broken, so I use it for cutting, which is for a knife, which is a really efficient knife because it cuts very well, and the handle structure is very ergonomic. So don't throw away broken tools. For the principal air layering is you want to go all around and remove all the bark until you get the cambium layer. So that's what I'm trying to do. For pine, it's actually a little tough to do because the bark is actually very thick. So now I have removed the the bark, I want to put the rooting hormone. Generous amount because the cost is very little relative to the tree you get. And I expect to have this in about 1 year to be able to get it rooted. If not, then the experiment didn't work, and you will understand. But you can see what will happen. This part is actually dead, so I remove it. But this is the top. So if I tilt the tree, so you can see this tree will be like this going up, and this be put down gradually, and you will have a very short tree about this high. And I think this is about right. This tree is really kind of out of shape, but it's okay because so old, it's venerable. It can be what it is. But I think this would be a much better, interesting tree. Okay, with that then I would put moss around it. Now this is the moss that you get from Phalaenopsis orchid that you get from these orchids are grown. Well, actually, most of the orchids in the U.S. are grown in Japan, in Taiwan. So what I would do is I cut a hole and put moss in it to hold the soil. Very easy to cut because it's soft. And I will make the bottom bigger to accommodate the bark. So I'll close the bottom so that not all the water will run out, but some will run out, it's okay. Then I'll stick this moss in. This is actually New Zealand moss, which is really the best thing for air layering. And if I do the same thing with elm trees, it can be a very thick branch and it will root out in 3 to 6 months very readily. And this is going to be more challenging because I really do not know pine is that easy to air layer, but it's worth the effort to try. So I'm not going to try too hard to close it all together. Any little opening will let moisture out and dry out. Rather, what I would do is I go get some aluminum foil and to cover it really well, so like a second layer of covering with the aluminum being the first layer. You can see the wire is quite shiny that I use because I don't want it to forget and then degrade the tree if I ever use wiring. I do use wiring, but very sparingly because it's less natural than using wire to string to pull down a branch to be more like nature stressing a tree drooping in its own weight. So you can see water can come in here, but it's pretty much sealed at the bottom. Not totally, but here I think I can use some tape, but I think I'll just use more wire to have more air. Okay, so I'll water it, and then I'll get some aluminum foil to close it up. And today is May 16th, and let's see what happens 6 months and a year from now. I leave it a little bit open on the top, so when I water, the water will go down to keep the moss wet. One of the principles to keep in mind about air layering is the medium should never get dried out because it would just stop the process. But you can see this is a very healthy tree. While I have no experience, but I gotta believe the books are correct, that it will root out and I will have a nice tree. Before I cut it off, I will probably really cut off a lot of it to reduce the amount of water loss. And I think I will get a very nice Nishiki pine out of this without the graft mark. So the principle of grafting today is that you remove a layer of the bark. There's a rule of thumb about like 1.5 times the thickness of the branch, which I'm not sure I met that requirement, but I remove about 1 inch of the bark, and I put rooton on it, in a sense, rooting hormone, and then I wrap it with moss, New Zealand moss. And the principle about successful air layering is make sure the medium never dries out so that the roots will continue to develop. I think that's pretty much it, and I will update you in about 6 months to see how, open it up, see the progress, and then wrapping it up again for the roots to grow out more to see if we are going to be successful. The same technique on air layering can be applied to any tree. The tree in your garden, a very big elm tree, you can layer a big piece and you can have an instant big bonsai after several years of training of the branching. So it's a very effective way, cost-effective way, and a speedy way of getting good bonsai very quickly. And I've done a lot of air layering. Some of them are not that spectacular, but I want to share with you this experiment so we both can learn. I'm trying to educate this community to be our bonsai community, that I will share my knowledge with you so that you will enjoy your bonsai more, you'll be successful with your bonsai. Rather than buying a tree and die on you, you can have very successful, healthy trees. So please like my video. I need encouragement, and subscribe to our channel so that we'll notify you of the progress. All the trees that I do, I will show several months intervals, the progress of the tree, so you can follow the development just as if you own the tree. And I think that's a very nice way to learn. So thank you. Give me some feedback how I can improve and cover subjects that are of great interest to you. Okay, thank you.